right, I'm going to go ahead and call the Transportation and Public Safety budget meeting to order. My understanding is Representative Victors is on WebEx. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Representative Victors, are you there?
Yes. Yes.
Hey, just so we know, when we start to take votes on this, you know you have to be in the building for your vote to count. Are you going to be in the building tomorrow when we start to work these?
Yes, I'll be in the building tomorrow.
Okay, all right, thanks. Just trying to make sure everybody knew what the rules have to be, unfortunately. So with that, we're going to move on to the next item of the agenda, and it's bill introductions. Are there any bill introductions? Representative Ellis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to introduce RS 2592. RS 2592.
What's it about?
It's about adoption.
Adoption of children?
Adoption rules about how a person can get their real father's birth certificate.
Okay, all right. Is there any objection to the introduction of the bill? Okay, seeing none, it's introduced. Thank you, Representative. All right, so as everybody knows, today we're going to start our staff and agency budget reviews. Everybody, I just want to warn you very much before we get too deep into this. They changed the format of the budget analysis this year, and I want to point out one thing that was difficult for me to find as I was learning. Let's take, our first one is going to be the Abstractors Board of Examiners. So if everybody can look at that document, if we go to page 4, at the top there is a graph, and it's called Abstractor Fee Fund Expenditures. One of the things I often try to look at is what is the fund balance if they're not an SGF fund, you know? I mean, how much money is there in the fund that's rolling over year to year? And then in the green, it shows how much revenue they get, you know, from 19, 20, 21, and 22. And then it shows their expenditures. So we can very quickly look at it and see whether they're accruing ending balances or if they're depleting ending balances. I had troubles finding that, and that's the only reason I want to bring it to your attention. Another thing, as we talk to our conferees, I've been asked to try to find anything that would work in the Spark and ARPA funds. You know, we're looking for things that will improve the health of Kansans, make government more efficient. I wish I had. Do you know off the top of your head what the four, let's say it's health and education, it's government efficiencies. Do you know what they are off the top of your head, Merle? There's 4 of them.
One moment.
But when we're talking, we're trying to use the resources of the state efficiently. And so maybe they've got something that they'd really like to have this year that can improve those. Oh, do you have it, Merle?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the 4 task force, sub task force of the Spark Advisory Committee arranged on the topics of connectivity, economic revitalization, efficiency and modernization, and health and education.
Okay, so if everybody can kind of keep that in the back of their mind, you know, about something that can maybe be put in one of those categories, and we'll encourage them to apply for the ARPA and Spark. If it's something really, really important, I don't want to just kill it. So we'll want to make notes for the analysts to make it a recommendation that we'll put it off to something like omnibus pending the outcome of the hearings for Spark. So again, if it's something that you feel like is important, don't feel like it's dead. That's not the purpose of this once it goes into that process. It's just a more effective use of funds. Okay. With that, the first thing on the agenda is going to be a budget presentation for the Abstractors Board of Examiners by Harris Sheik. Harris, looking forward to it today. Is this your first one?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. This is actually my third one today.
Oh, so you're an old pro now. Don't cut him any slack. Ask him the hard
won't-
questions.
I won't up the expectations if I were you, but, you know. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Name is Harris Sheikh from KLRD, and I will be talking about one of the budgets that I'm talking about is Abstractors Board of Examiners. From the agency, I have Sean Herrick, online via WebEx. She will stand for questions once I'm done with the testimony. I will start with the page number 1 here. The Abstractors Board of Examiner licenses and regulates companies and their employees that sell abstracts of land titles to Kansas real estate. It is a biennial agency, which means that the 2021 legislature approved funds for FY 2022 and 2023. I will move on to the first 2 pages are executive summary. I will move to page number 3, where I'm looking at figure 5, which says Abstractors Fee Fund expenditures going back to FY 2014. Abstractors Board is a fee-funded agency. It generates fees from revenues from 3 sources, including annual license fee, examination fee, and additional examination fee. Those fees are $75, $70, and $50 respectively. The revenue received provides funding for entire agency operations, with 90% retained by the agency and 10% being remitted to the state general fund. I will move to page number 4 here, where we're looking at figure 6, Abstractors Fee Fund. This looks at the fund revenue, expenditures, and ending balances going back to fiscal year 2009. The expenditures for the fund decreased slightly over the last couple of years. The agency estimates expenditures to increase for FY 2022 and 2023. If we can turn to page number 5 here, that's the fiscal year 2022 analysis. Subsequent to the 2021 session, no adjustments were made to the $25,617 appropriated to the Abstractors Board of Examiners for fiscal year 2022. The agency estimates revised operating expenditures of $25,716, all from the Abstractors fee fund in fiscal year 2022. This is the same amount as approved by the legislature, and the agency has no changes to its estimate. The governor concurs with the agency's revised estimate. With this, I can pause for any questions regarding FY 2022. Moving on to page 6, that's the change from actual expenditures. The agency's FY 22 revised estimate is $4,410, or 20.7% above the FY 2021 actual expenditures. This increase is due to increased expenditures for travel and lodging, as well as stationery and office supplies in fiscal year 2022. Moving on, I'm looking at fiscal year 2023. Subsequent to the 2021 session, no adjustments were made to the $25,717 appropriated to the Abstractors Board of Examiners for the fiscal year 2023. The agency's revised operating expenditures of $25,717 is the same amount that was appropriated by the 2021 legislature. The agency has no adjustments within this category, and the governor concurs with the agency's budget. I will now stand for questions for FY 2023 or anything relating to the budget.
Anybody got any questions? Representative Delperdang.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for doing it. What's the difference between figure 5 and figure 12? And then I'm going to
So figure 5 is the abstractor fee fund expenditures. The figure 12 is what we have is performance measures. That is something that is new this year. For agencies that have different programs, you would see fund analysis for those different programs. But since the Abstractors Board only has one program, which is, it only has one fund, and its performance measures are all under the administration program, it basically is the same thing. What you're seeing is the fund analysis for the Abstractors fee fund.
Okay, and then specifically, and I guess we can pick either graph because they're the same, but going into fiscal year 21 and beyond, I'm showing is it the expenditures 100% the governor?
Those amounts are, since those are estimated amounts, so that's why they have the governor's recommended amount there.
What estimated amounts?
Yes, because for, they have actual amounts for, you're talking about figure 6, right?
Well, like fiscal year 21, I would think that's probably a given. So moving forward, it just showed governor with the color code, so.
So, yeah, if I understand you correctly, you're talking about figure 6 where it says FY22 governor recommendation and governor recommendations, right?
And then who actually, I guess, administers this? FTE, there's 0, so not even, I would think if somebody's doing it part-time, there's going to be a 0.1, 0.2, but we've got nobody here.
Their contract.
So strictly contract. Okay, all right, thank you.
And we can ask Sean when she gets here to address that. She might be part-time, I can't remember. Did they start to round down part-times to 0, Merle?
Mr. Chairman, right, so a half-time position, one FTE would be a one full-time equivalent. So if she is half-time, that's a 0.5, so that wouldn't register as a one FTE.
But I would expect to show up, if that's the case, I would expect to see a 0.5 on here rather than there's 0. So there's nobody administering it? Nobody writing checks? There shouldn't be any expenditures, is there?
No, she is the current executive director. She is a part-time employee, but it's not registered or not tracked as an FTE until there is a full-time equivalent. So if there was 2 part-time positions, you'd have one full FTE, but I understand your point.
The reason I picked up on it, in previous years when we were in general government budget, we had 0.25, 0.5, that kind of thing showing up. But
If I remember right, and that's why I do get confused on it, they did some kind of a FTE reform, didn't they, last year? Isn't that what they said? There's going to be some variation because of that?
That could be. You're correct, the executive director might have more insight on why.
Yeah, I think you're right, though. It did used to show up as a half, and now it's showing up as a 0. Yeah, we'll ask Sean. She may not know either. Okay, any other questions? All right.
And we have Sean Herrick from the agency. I understand that she's standing for questions, but I don't think she's presenting testimony.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, Sean, welcome to the committee.
You want me to, or just hit the highlights? However you would like.
I'm sorry, we missed the first little part of what you said, Sean.
I said I did submit testimony yesterday, so it's just a little one-page deal with some numbers on it, and I'm happy to go through that if you would like, or not. I sent it to the email that Harris had sent me, so hopefully it got to the right place.
Yeah, we'd probably like for you to get into it just for a minute. And I did want to, you knew Glenn McQueen pretty well, didn't you?
Well, yes, and I assure you that first off, to the questions previous, I am a person, half a person. I'm a whole person to my kids, but to the Abstractors Board, I am half a person. And I think with the adjustments and how that's registered for you all, I don't show up at all. So, but
I just wanted to make note. Did you know Glenn passed away like within the last week or two?
That is in my testimony, and he was my predecessor for over 30 years, and his secretary, Patricia Zellner, was also there for over 30 years. And unfortunately, he did just pass away January 17th. And he was a very respected member of our industry, both in the title insurance arena as well as abstracts and real estate even there in where he's from. So I did have that in my testimony to report that because he was there for y'all for over 30 years. So I have worked for the Abstractors Board for a little over, right at 2 years, completing my, I'm working on completing my third round of license renewals. In last year, there were 194 employee licenses and 167 operative licenses. And that is that $75 per that funds our agency. So far for 2022, and the licenses do go on an annual year, but they have to supply their errors and omissions insurance deck pages. Sometimes they don't get those, so we generally don't have 100% by January 1. But so far for 2022, we have 166 employee and 154 operative licenses that I've got processed and sent back out. We did conduct a couple of exams. We are doing, I know last year's testimony, there was questions about why my expenses were down, although we don't have very many expenses. We do have a little bit. And the reason they were down is I was doing the exams via Zoom. We were doing our board meetings via Zoom. So there was no travel expenses for me or meeting room expenses. And the Kansas Land Title Association graciously lets us use their Zoom account to host those meetings for our board as well as people who are testing. And we did have 2 tests last fall, and each of them passed a section or 2 and didn't pass the whole exam. So they'll be retesting different segments as they progress. The current board members, Roger Hannaford, Jill Renard, and Geraldine Stoll, are longtime members of the agency, and I am not an abstractor, but they're full knowledge in the state, probably some of the best in the state on the topic of abstracts, and they hold my hand on anything that needs to be taken care of in the abstracting world. So they all have recently been reappointed by the governor for another term, and I respectfully submit that, and hopefully you did get a paper copy of that by my email. And if there's any questions for me, I'm happy to answer.
Is there any questions, committee? So just to clarify, the increase from contractual services from 236 to 3929 is primarily room rentals and travel expenses to go around the state giving tests. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, I guess I don't have the draft of the budget in front of me, actually, or the budget analysis. So the only expenses that we have, other than me, myself, is room rental and travel expenses. Oh, a little bit of paper and ink and postage to send out the licenses.
Right, and we didn't travel last year, so we expect to resume traveling in 2022.
Let's
correct?
hope. Yes, they do really want to. The board prefers meeting the test takers that are applying to become abstract agents because it's a complicated industry, and they want them to make sure that they understand what they're doing when they take the exams and understand what they didn't pass and why. So one of the board members in particular really wants to be live. But as you know, COVID will help dictate that.
Okay, any other questions? Representative Resman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You don't have a copy of the paperwork that we have in front of us, do you?
I do not.
No? Okay. On administrative performance measures, it shows the cost per license for 2020 of 6017, and then it goes down to 5853, and then it goes back up to 6176. And then for 2022, it shows 7026. And I was just wondering why, if you have a steady fee for testing, that's different from, was it $75 for one test? And
Well, if they retake, their first exam is $75. If they pass parts of it and then they retake parts of it, it's only $50. And I apologize, I'm not looking at what you're looking at, so that may not be the question you are asking.
Yeah, I was just wondering why the numbers fluctuate, or the amount fluctuates from year to year.
Number of test takers?
No, the dollar amount. I know you can't see it, so it's kind of hard to explain.
And the dollar amount of the licenses themselves are $75 for either employee or operative.
I wonder, Representative, if, this is such a large budget. Harris, you might want to look at this, but could it be the fact that their contractual services fluctuated so much that we're dividing the 21,306 by a lower number than it was in 2020?
Just to clarify, Mr. Chair, Representative, you're talking about page 11, right?
Page 9.
Page 9. Okay. I may have different page numbers here. And what was the category for the performance measure there? Do you know? Right. And figure 13, yes. And we're looking at outcome measures or output measures. There's are you going down the numbers there, right?
Cost per license.
Cost per license. Let me look at that. I will see that here.
Yeah, that's what it is. See that down there at the bottom, their total, they're financing the 21,901. That 21,901 divided by 364 is 16 point whatever. And then it went down to 21,306. So that dropped it to 5853. And she said they didn't travel, so they didn't have the room rental and the gas and mileage. You get them small budgets and a little bit makes a, we do have the pleasure and prestige of having the smallest budget in state government in our
I
committee.
did not know that.
I think that's true, or at least it used to be true. So, okay. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your testimony, and thanks for the work you do.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Next budget review is going to be Board of Technical Professions, and we'll have Harris Sheik again.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Harris again from KLRD, and I will be talking about the Board of Technical Professions this time. I have here in the audience Executive Director Larry Karns, who's representing the agency. He will talk about the budget and stand for questions after I'm done. It is, again, Kansas Board of Technical Professions is a biennial agency, which means they have approved amounts for FY 2022 and 2023. The purpose of the Board of Technical Professions is to establish and maintain a high standard of integrity, skills, and practice in the technical professions, which are the disciplines of architecture, engineer, engineering geologists, geology, landscape architecture, as well as surveyors. The first 2 pages are executive summary and budget highlights. So I will move to page 3, which looks at the technical professions fee fund expenditures going back to fiscal year 2014. The agency is funded from, it's entirely funded from new and renewal license fees for individuals and businesses, as well as from license reinstatement and replacement fees and reciprocity license fees. The revenue received provides financing for all operations of the agency, with 90% being retained by the agency and 10% being remitted to the State General Fund. Page number 4, figure 6, looks at the technical professions fee fund expenditures between fiscal year 2019 and 2023. Lowered expenditures in FY 2019 through fiscal year 2021 drove higher balances. For the technical professions fee fund, the agency anticipates higher expenditures in fiscal year 2022 and 23, which will eliminate that growth. Moving on, I'm looking at page 5 here, the fiscal year 2022 analysis. No adjustments were made to the $786,172 for all from the tech professions fee fund approved by the 2021 legislature. The agency estimates operating expenditures of $786,172, all from the tech professions fee fund. This is the same amount approved by the legislature, the 2021 legislature. The agency estimates the following adjustments. They are numbered. I will touch on a couple of those here. The agency increased its estimate for membership dues and subscription by $5,000. This increase reflects the changes in subscription fees for the national associations of the 5 disciplines that the agency regulates. Further, the agency increased its estimates for assigned counsel fees from $40,000 to $45,000 for FY 2022. This is per direction from the Attorney General's office. Looking at number 6, the agency decreased its estimate for computer equipment and programming by $13,000. The agency used to provide testing equipment and fees for the geology licensing exam in-house. This has since been moved to an outside vendor, so applicants get those from the vendors directly. So that has resulted in a decrease in the estimate. The other adjustments, agency has reduced overall other operating adjustments by $5,476, which include stationery and office supplies, court costs, as well as private vehicle miles. The governor concurs with the agency's revised estimate in fiscal year 2022, and I will pause for questions regarding fiscal year 2022 here.
Any questions for Harris? Have you guys started to see and research a lot of these increases for the Office of Technology Services? Do you know, is that something that's specific to this agency, or is it something we've seen across the board?
Mr. Chair, I have not seen across the board, but the 4 or 5 agencies that I have, it's been a standard there, for all those agencies. I cannot speak for agencies that I have not made the budgets for, but
have you been made aware of anything that's leading that increase in charges for OITs? It may have been one of the agencies, I think it was administrative hearings. They told me that it was $3. They have increased charges for service desk user fees, as well as so there's a $3 per person per month increase by OITs for use of tele and data service per employee per service. That includes email and telephone service, and also includes non-user fees such as like generic email and fax. And I'm not sure which agency that was, but I
got that information.
$3 per person
Per month, per account. So let's say if I have an email address or a telephone line at my desk, that is $3 for each person per month. And it's not limited to employees, it's also limited to like generic email and office fax and phone numbers.
So is it $3 for the telephone and then $3 for the email, or,
That is my understanding.
well, okay, we'll follow up on that. Maybe Larry can shed a little bit more light on that, okay? Any other questions? Representative Delperdang.
Thank you. On page 5, item number 2, it talks about salaries and wages. It's decreased by $2,024 below 2021. And I'm trying to figure out where that is, because when I go to 2021, salaries and wages, it's $298,000. I go to the 22, it's increased by roughly $50,000, $40,000, something like that.
So are you looking at figure 8 for FY22?
And I see figure 8 where it shows up as a red line item as a negative.
Right.
But why would, if that's the case, why are the wages substantially higher in 22 than in 21 if we're reducing them? I'm just missing something here.
So Representative, that decrease is comparing it to the amount approved by the 2021 legislature. So that's a 2,000 decrease from the amount that was approved for salaries and wages, which was already higher than the actual for FY 2021. So that is why the 2,000 is compared to what was allocated to salaries and wages for
So the
2020.
approved versus the actual then?
Yeah, so that is the approved versus agency estimate. The negative 2,024 that you see, this is a comparison between what the 2021 legislature approved for 2022 and what the agency estimates for 2022.
So we do not have the approved 2021, do we, on here?
Not on this document.
That's the
Yes.
part I'm missing. Okay, thank you.
But Representative, I looked it up before the meeting, and the approved was $339,994 on the analysis. So that doesn't quite make sense because it's actually 2,000 higher, but that's what I looked when I looked at the last year's summary. It was $3,339,994. Other questions? Okay, thank you very much. And now from the agency, we have Larry Karns. He's the Executive Director of the Kansas State Board of Technical. Oh, wait, you've got to do the second one, don't you?
Right,
We're only half done.
yes, I will make it quick if you'd like me to. So I'm looking at page number 8 right now, which is the FY 2023 analysis. So no adjustments were made to the $792,091, all from the tech professions fee fund approved by the 2021 legislature. The agency requests operating expenditures of $792,091, all from the tech professions fee fund for FY 2023. This is the same amount as approved by the 2021 legislature. The agency requests the following adjustments. They are listed down. I'll touch up on a couple of those. One is the attorney fees. As in FY 2022, the agency increased its estimate for assigned counsel from $40,000 to $45,000. This is per direction and per contract from the Office of the Attorney General. Membership dues and subscription, as in FY 2022, the agency has increased that estimate by $5,000 to cover the increased charges for subscription fees for the associations of the disciplines that the agency covers. And the computer equipment fee, which was decreased in fiscal year 2022, has also been decreased by $13,000 in 2023. That covers the geology exam computer and testing equipment that used to be provided in-house and has since been outsourced. And the governor concurs with the agency's FY 2023 revised estimate. And that is all I have for FY 2023. I can take questions regarding 2023 or anything regarding the agency's budget in general.
Questions, committee? Hey, but to kind of follow up with what Representative Delperdang had on the last question. So when we're looking at, maybe I'm not thinking something through straight, but when we're looking, where's the 811? Okay, so we've got salaries and wage adjustments of 811 for fiscal year 2023, correct? And then when I go back and I look at page 3, and I look at salary, oh, wait, I see what I'm doing. Well, 811, and there's $5,000 difference there, isn't there? Salary and wages between 2022 and 2023, isn't there well, not quite 5,000, $4,800 difference? Is that right?
So just so I understand correct, you're saying so the $2,024 that was in 22 was a decrease, right?
Well, but I'm trying to compare 22 to 23. So for salaries and wages, we have 341, 398. Right, the governor's recommendation and the agency recommendation for salaries and wages, right?
Right.
And then the agency and the governor's recommendation for salaries and wages for 2023 is $346,152,
That is correct.
and that's about a $5,000 difference.
I would say so, yes.
Okay, so then I go over here to figure 10,
Right.
and it says that salary and wage adjustments are only $811.
Right.
Why?
So that
It looks like they should be the same number to me.
Right, and that's the adjustment they've made. They've increased 811 on top of 346,152. That is, these adjustments are, if you see, the agency is not asking for an overall increased amount. They were approved 792,091. They're asking for the same amount. They've just adjusted amounts within those categories, but to answer your question, they are asking 811 over the 346,152. Now, why they're asking that amount over that, I do not have an answer to that. I will defer that to the agency.
I'm sorry, I thought fiscal year 2023, that 346,152 was what the agency was asking for. And the governor was given. Merle, do you see what I'm talking about? What am I misunderstanding? I'm sure it's simple.
I don't. So you're referencing, when you say 346, what is the amount you're referencing?
It's on figure 4. 346, figure 4 is 346,152 for salaries and wages for 2023, right? And that is about 5,000 more than salary and wages for 2022, correct?
Correct.
And then I go to the summary of the budget request on figure 10. And for salary and wages, it says the adjustment's 811.
So remember that the figure 10 is referencing deviations from the amount that was approved by the 2021 legislature. The amount that you're looking at in agency FY 2023 on figure 4, that is what the agency, that is their revised request for 23. So it's not, so 23, I'm sorry, the request for FY 23 is not, that you see on the table here, is not just a simple addition to 22, it's a deviation from what's already been approved for 23.
And I kind of got that from 21 to 22, even though I saw that it was a 2,000 increase, and it shows up as a 2,000 decrease, but maybe my number wasn't right. I'll let you work the math out with me later, okay? We won't make everybody work through this. Other questions? Okay. When we get this figured out, Representative Delperdang, I'll share it with you. Yeah, okay. All right, any other questions? Okay. Now we'll hear from Larry Karns. Larry, welcome to the committee, sir.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the committee. My name's Larry Karns. I'm the Executive Director of the Kansas State Board of Technical Professions. I've been there a little over 2 years. We have 13 board members. As you know, we regulate engineers, architects, geologists, land surveyors, and landscape architects. We have thousands of Kansas residents and non-residents that we license. You have before you our budgets. I'm not sure I can answer all the in-the-weeds questions that you have, but I'll try. Generally, haven't asked for any increases in wages. When we prepare the budget, there's a calculator that you use, and it automatically increases a few $1,000s. I think here, between 22 and 23, about $5,000. My understanding of that was it was estimating what future costs for health insurance and that sort of thing would be. We didn't ask for a $5,000 increase in salaries. This was what the calculator presented for us, and that's what was included in our budget. In fact, in my tenure, my agency had 5 full-time equivalent employees, and we've reduced it to 4. I have absorbed duties and tried to save money. We're operating in a lean and mean function and efficiently. I'm proud of the fact that we actually, by statute, our renewal license fees are allowed to be up to $200 per year. We charge $70 every 2 years, or $35 a year to renew a license for an engineer or an architect, a very minimal licensing fee. And with the thousands of people that we license, it generates about $800,000 worth of revenue a year. We've been spending roughly $650,000 of that the last couple of years because we haven't been traveling. All of our meetings have been remote. My board members generally go to a number of national meetings across the country. My staff attend those meetings. We've not been attending those meetings because of the COVID situation, and we've had substantial savings because of that. We also, some of the increases are a result of the Attorney General's office raising their fees for outside counsel, but even those have been minimal. So I'd be happy to address any questions that you might have.
Questions for Mr. Karns? Go ahead, Representative Poskin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on the FTEs, then it should be 4, not 5?
We have not given up the 5th position
Okay.
and are resident to do that, but we don't have any plans to fill it in the near future.
Okay, thank you.
So based off what you'd said earlier, the attorney's fees increase came from the Attorney General's office. And then the state building capital charge increase of $6,000, that came from the administration. So, yeah, you don't have any idea why it went up. What was it before that? Do you have any idea?
I can't give you that number. You know, OIT's money goes up, state administrative fees go up.
Yeah, that OIT's increase seemed pretty extreme, didn't it? $4,500 for a 4-person department. But that's what they sent you.
Yes.
And they didn't give you much of an explanation on it. Okay. So when you were talking about salaries and wages, on page 7, do you have a copy of this, Mr. Karns? And maybe Harris can help you with it. It says in salaries and wages, an increase of $43,282 from actual 2021 expenditures is due to the lack of raises of staff received in January 2021.
What we did in that instance was we eliminated a position, that's that 5th position we did, and absorbed those duties. And I can't tell you exactly what the total cost savings was, but the salary and benefits for the position that we didn't fill exceeded the money that we spent on increasing wages. And I don't think it was $43,000. My estimate would have been about 20.
So you guys divided the cost of that 5th position among the other people that were working there?
Not the full amount, no, about half of it.
And what's the process for your agency to get salary increases? I mean, what's the procedure you have to go through?
Submit a request to the Department of Division of Personnel of the Department of Administration and justify why we're wanting to make the increases. And again, our purpose here was each one of my 3 remaining staff members absorbed additional duties, the duties that had been performed by the person that was not replaced. And that was the basis for their increases.
Okay, so there was an increase of 43,000, but it was offset by a decrease of a position that was done away with.
I don't think we spent $43,000. I know how much we gave each one of those 3 employees, and it doesn't add up to $43,000.
Can you find that number out for us and get it to Harris?
If I were to guess, I think the total amount might have been 20, but that would be just salary. Then we've got to add benefits on top of that and that sort of thing. So it could have got to 43, but I'd be surprised.
It'd be pretty tough to get to 43 from, 20,000 increase, you would think. I mean, I do understand there's some matching issues, but okay. Okay.
The only other thing I can think of is that, and maybe I shouldn't volunteer information. As a lawyer, they always told me not to volunteer, but there was a period of time where that position wasn't filled, and then we made those adjustments, and I'm thinking that might some way inflate that figure. It ought to actually deflate it. I'll have to get the number for you.
But you went through the process of going to the Department of Administration and then having the executive branch approve it?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the Emergency Medical Services Board. And Shirley Morrow has got to the committee just in the nick of time, and she'll go over that budget for us. Welcome to the committee, Shirley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome this afternoon. It's been an afternoon. Okay, you have in front of you the budget analysis for the Emergency Medical Services Board. Joseph House is also here as the Executive Director to answer questions. If it's okay with the chair, I will start with the fiscal year 2022 budget on page 6. There was an approved amount by last year's legislature of $2.5 million. And the agency's revised estimate is an increase of $81,641, 3.2% above the approved amount. There's small increases in salaries and wages, contractual services. The largest increase of that is the $79,000 or 11.6% in the EMS Revolving grant. And if you're unfamiliar, there's a bullet there. It describes where that comes from. It's a state-funded grant that provides financial assistance for organizations and training. And it's a percentage from remitted fines and penalties and forfeitures from the court system. And the governor made no changes to the concurred with the agency's revised estimate.
Okay, proceed.
On the next page, on page 7, we have a new graph to our budget analysis where we compare the actuals for 2021 to the fiscal year 2022 revised estimate. It's an increase of $581,000 or 28.8% above the 2021 expenditures. There are increases in all the expenditure categories, $120,000 in salaries and wages, $228,000 in contractual services, and not quite $200,000 in the aid to locals. And the aid to locals, again, is that EMS Revolving grant.
Questions? See, we start with the smallest budget in government, and we proceed up the chain so that we get our questions out of the way. Okay. All right.
On page 8, we have the fiscal 23 budget. The agency's estimate for 2022 is $2.6 million, and the estimate for 2023 is $2.6 million. It's a slight decrease of $12,000 or 5% below the revised estimate for 22. There are increases in contractual services and capital outlay. However, there's a large decrease of almost $80,000, and that's that EMS revolving grant. The governor concurs with the agency's budget.
Any questions? All right, thank you very much, Shirley.
Thank you.
Next up, we're going to have Joe House, the Executive Director of the Emergency Medical Services Board. And I just want to preface his testimony. Joe's worked with me a little bit on some expanded programs that might help our smaller EMSs and maybe some of our larger EMSs across the state. Again, the purpose of this primarily is going to be Sparks and ARPA proposal. This is one of the ones we need to probably tell Shirley if she's already gone. Oh, you there? We're going to want to try to somehow put this in our recommendation as pending that we support this application to Sparks and ARPA. Joe, did you make the proposal to, you're going to make the proposal to the health, is that right? Or which subcommittee?
For the ARPA request?
Yeah.
We'll actually submit through their online submission.
Yeah.
That application process.
Probably through the health part of it? Okay. All right. With that, go ahead. Sorry, I just wanted everybody to know. You're going to see some big numbers in here, and that's the purpose of it. I didn't want anybody to get scared. All right. Welcome to the committee, Joe.
Thank you, Chairman Francis, members of the committee. My name is Joe House. I'm the Executive Director of the Emergency Medical Services Board. So we regulate all things related to ambulances, paramedics, EMTs, and such. So as you heard, our budget is pretty straightforward going through. I'm happy to answer any questions about that if you have them now, and then I can go on to those ARPA requests that were mentioned by the chairman. Go ahead. Okay. So the majority of the testimony that we submitted is dealing with those four requests. And so I just want to start out by saying that resources in EMS in Kansas right now are struggling. We're hurting a lot, much like everybody else. But we have this kind of fine balance that we sit upon where we're not necessarily enough public safety, but we're also not enough health. And so we sit on that fence between the two, back and forth. So we have a tendency to fall out of a lot of grant opportunities or other opportunities that have been out there to help offset some of the funding sources. So this was an attempt to try to help find something that would help those services right now. So staffing is a huge issue across the state. Supply chain disruption has caused all sorts of headaches and things, to the point of which our services are actually looking at reducing what they can provide simply because they just can't get items anymore. And then, of course, reimbursement practices are absolutely just outdated right now within the state, but we're working through that with the Health Committee, with CanCare oversight to at least impact the part that we can on the state Medicaid side of things. So to look at increasing that reimbursement as we go on. So some items that our board brainstormed around to things that we could look into assisting is we already have an education incentive grant that exists within our program that comes as a direct disbursement out of our operating fund, helps offset costs for initial courses of instruction, for continuing education for our EMS providers, and then for professional development if it gets down that path. So our first request there was to look at, and what we'll submit in is $1 million infusion into that grant process. Currently, we put in about $375,000, $350,000 is transferred from our operating fund over to that on an annual basis in 2 disbursements, and we just look to augment that through the end of 2024. It looks like the funds would have to be expended by the end of 26, but that would offer a pretty good infusion into that grant program. The second item that we had is the Kansas Revolving Assistance Fund. You've heard that mentioned a couple times as Shirley was going through our budget. So we historically have averaged about $1.4 million in total requests coming in. As CARES came out, that was one of those areas where our services actually did qualify for receiving some of that funding. So what we saw was our craft balances drop. Those requests kind of bottomed out last year, mainly because those folks had another means to get that same equipment. What we've seen now is that that money's been expended by the local units. It's now back. I would say our request, our grant process just ended December 31st. We were just over $1 million in total requests for equipment. And again, that's for patient-related items like cardiac monitors, ventilators, transport ventilators that are primarily designed to go on ambulances. The gurney, as they'll call it, the stretcher, the place patients, those things are getting more and more expensive as they go on. But that is what that CRAF grant is there for. And so we also requested, or are going to request, an additional $1 million in that ARPA funding to go specifically towards that equipment. Now, the thing with both of these grant opportunities is that they are primarily, or they're prioritized to agencies in the rural and densely settled rural and frontier areas of our state, not necessarily our urban states. Doesn't mean that they're not qualified for it, but they're lower priority as we go through things. The next two items that we had, modernizing our exam process and then expanding rural access to training. Our modernizing exam process, as I was looking through the application today, I'm not 100% certain we're going to be able to match or fit into the ARPA funding. So we're probably going to strike that one because I can't necessarily make a nexus into meeting those funds.
You can't with the government efficiency and modernization portion of it?
I might be able to. It was close. I would love to say yes, but boy, I was finding a whole lot of no's as I was going through the process today.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. With that, what we were looking at doing was taking our state, currently our skills examination for our BLS providers, our emergency medical responders, and our emergency medical technicians come in. They perform a 15-minute management of a patient. So as it's a scenario, there is a live patient there, not necessarily really sick, but simulated to be sick, that they take care of for 15 minutes as they would as if they were to go out on the call and take care of that individual. That involves having a patient, an examiner, an assistant present. It involves staff from my office coming out to the test site, and then staff from the site at where we're at also being there. So there's about 4 or 5 people in a relatively close area. We were looking at expanding or modernizing that to do a virtual reality format with the advances within virtual reality. They have made it actually very possible to treat and to the point of where we could examine based upon a virtual situation. So it is amazing where that's come. But our request was in there was going to be for up to $2 million because it's really an unknown how much that's going to cost us to expand that. So we wanted to aim high, which is why that large amount came in on that piece. And so it would be to modernize that, to move it to a virtual reality format, hopefully make that a little more accessible across the state as well. The last item there is the expanding the rural access to training. We've saw a project that's had extreme success in the state of Montana in getting team training out into their more rural areas of their state. And it is a mobile high-fidelity simulation laboratory truck. So the easiest way to imagine it is a very large chassis truck with a big box on the back end. Mobile classroom, I think is what those used to be called, where the front portion of that box is a simulated emergency room. The back end of that box is a simulated home environment or any other environment that you like to put in. In between the two is where the staff sits to simulate the patient in both. Your EMS crew responds to the back end of the vehicle. They take care of the patient. They transport around to the front end where the emergency room is and then hand off to the emergency room. And it's really just completing that loop between on the training side of things and making sure that you have a team approach to taking care of those patients. So those trucks for the state of Montana came just at $1.25 million a piece. We were going to make a request for 2 of those within the state at a total of, or up to $3 million on that, to have those 2 high-fidelity simulation vehicles. So those are the 4 items that we had that were related to the ARPA. There are a couple other items, like I mentioned, the reimbursement side of things. We are working through the Health Committee on helping to hopefully increase reimbursement amounts, at least through state Medicaid. As you can see, we haven't had an increase, a significant increase for 45% of the calls that are out there since 2001, at least. That's the furthest back we could find rates that were being paid. At that point, it's $40, $80, $180 is what those ambulance services are getting if they transport. If they don't transport, they get 0. So if we were to go out, correct the situation, which is very common within diabetic patients, we can go out and help bring their blood sugar up to a point where they can actually stay at home, don't necessarily need to go to the emergency room. They can just follow up with their physician as they need to. That ambulance service receives absolutely no reimbursement for that right now. We're hoping to fix that on the federal side. It's a Medicare problem to fix. By calling that term there is treatment in place. So if you do hear those terms being thrown around here within the State House, treatment in place is a great thing. That does allow them that mechanism to be reimbursed for those, for what they are incurring a significant cost to go do. And then the last item is really a supply chain disruption that we're seeing, and that is, as you very well know, if you drive around and look at any car dealership out there, the lack of new chassis and new vehicles is very real. Those lots are empty because there's no chipset available to them. Once those chipsets come back, these car manufacturers have lots and lots of chassis that they can put those things into and get those rolled off the line. We have a concern that they're not going to necessarily prioritize emergency vehicles. So we have an aging fleet of ambulances out there right now at the local level that are only getting older. The current build time, well, the previous build time for an ambulance, if I said today I want to buy an ambulance, let's see if we can get it, would take about 3 to 4 months. Right now, we have folks that are asking for ambulances and being told they'll get it in 31 months. 3 years is absolutely unacceptable, but that's the point at which they're being told, hey, nope, you're going to have to really think this out and go through. Those trucks are being run up to 250, 300,000 miles. Engine hours are looking at 5,500 to 7,000 hours on an engine, which is absolutely insane. Our distances that we're transporting patients are getting significantly longer simply right now because of lack of availability and such. And so this is an issue that we're a little concerned about. We've approached, as a board, the vehicle manufacturers asking for this component and really are just may end up coming to you guys to ask for a little bit of support if we need to start pushing some of the other federal agencies a little harder to try to prioritize, again, emergency vehicles when they come out. There's such a small percentage, it seems to be a very easy fix to get those out and going so that we can catch up with our ambulance manufacturers who have lots of boxes sitting out on their lots. They just don't have chassis to put them on, So that's really an oversight of those 4 items. I'm happy to hopefully answer any questions you may have.
Representative Delperdang.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate you being here. You were looking at me, so I had to ask something, right?
Great.
Now, what is the average age of your current ambulance fleet right now?
Average age is sitting right around 7 years.
So it could be getting vital in the next 2 or 3 years then, so.
Absolutely.
Okay. When was the last time the agency, kind of as a whole, received a pay raise?
That's a great question. That is the last time the legislature approved, and that didn't quite meet all of our employees, but met a vast majority of them. That was 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
Okay. What I was looking at figure 4 on page 3, it just shows from 21 actual to the 22 agency, it shows the increase in wages. And then you called it out specifically back on page 7, 120,192. But I'm noticing, I guess I'm looking again at the FTEs, it's not changing the number of people, so we're taking a 15% pay increase. Is that a correct statement?
So those salaries do increase. I did fill one of my vacant positions.
So
I
it
had
did
one
change
that
the
was sitting there.
FTEs then?
So the way that we count FTEs, my understanding is whether the position actually physically has a person or not, it's still counted as an FTE. So,
If that's the case, it's a moot question, but
Yeah.
I wanted to.
and so that's what, it's the combination of filling that one position, and then also our board members, we're anticipating we're going to start returning to in-person meetings and such, and so we do have their pay included
Okay.
in there.
Thank you.
Your board members' salaries are in salaries and wages? Okay. Other questions? Just to make sure I totally understand, the reason for the increase in the aid to local governments, again, is we anticipate the fees that you get from the court system to increase, so you'll have more money to hand out. Is that what I'm understanding? It's a budgetary thing, so you can expend all of it if you need to? Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. If not, okay, thank you very much. All right, committee, think about any amendments you want to make to any of these budgets. They're pretty simple, but yes, Merle. Go ahead, Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Resman, at that time, my apologies, when you asked the question, I mixed up my documents here. I was not able to follow the figure you were referring to. So I understand you were asking about the employee. You were saying why the license revenue amount keeps changing. So the way I look at it, this is not like a direct, when you see the cost per license, that's what it costs the agency. That's not the license fee. That's like what internally it costs them per. So that's why you see for FY 2022, that amount keeps changing even though their license fee hasn't changed. So if I understand it correctly, that's the budget amount that they had divided by total licenses. That's why it comes to that. And because I think their cost keeps going up and down, and I think what Sean was referring to at that time is that this is not like a direct multiplication, because a lot of time people take multiple exams, so they do pay multiple exam fee. So that's why there's a fluctuation in that amount.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions or clarifications? All right, so normally we try to let these rest today, but we've got a time pressure. I've got to report these out Thursday, so we're gonna make our recommendations tomorrow, and that way you'll have time to look at what's the document that you have to prepare?
The subcommittee report.
The subcommittee report. And then we'll also hear the state fire marshal. So I believe everybody, have we received the hard copy on the state fire marshal? All of us? Okay, great. Has everybody got that in their email? Everybody printed it off and read it in detail? Okay. Sounds good. All right. Thank you very much. And we'll see you guys tomorrow at 3:30 if there's nothing else. We're adjourned.